there, this is Billy Earl here on Delmarvalous Americana. You can find us on Pack 14 in beautiful downtown Salisbury, Maryland, as well as Delmarvalous Americana on YouTube. We are also available on NPR on WSDL 90.7. This show takes a look at those people who live and breathe and eat art and music. Make sure and go to Delmarvalous Americana House Concerts on Facebook for a schedule of those live music shows here in Salisbury, Maryland. Enjoy, adios, and namaste. Okay, this is Billy Earl on Delmarvalous Americana, WSDL. We're on 90.7. You can also find us on television in Salisbury and in Easton, and on YouTube at Delmarvalous Americana. Our guest today is a guy that I went to see about 2 weeks ago and did a good bit of taping with, and it just blew me away. Not only did I fall in love with his guitar, but I fell in love with the way that he phrases his music. Ryan Abbott, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time to do so. How is life, buddy?
Life is life, Billy. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Tell me about your musical journey. You're from Ocean City, aren't you?
I am. I guess I, like most people of my generation, fell in love with music around 1990 and 1991 when there was a big populist movement toward rock and roll, specifically grunge and Seattle bands. And that's kind of where I started playing the tennis racket as my air guitar in my bedroom. That's, MTV was big. So I had music keeping me company when I got home from school. Radio was big. I listened to Skip Dixon every morning while getting ready for school. Everywhere you looked, there was a distorted guitar riff that sounded so cool just in your face. And it sunk its teeth in me. And like a dog that won't let go of a bone, I am stuck in time from that first time I heard the introduction to Smells Like Teen Spirit, specifically the picks, that Kurt Cobain's pick raking the strings in between clean chords, making noise on something that, up until that point was a chore. Oh, I had to go to piano lessons. Oh, I had to, go to this school musical. Well, 1991 changed that for me. It was just an awakening. And it froze me in time. I am forever going to be that young lad listening to those chords. And it doesn't get old. It's never gotten old. And, from there, I taught myself how to play guitar because, the mechanics of going to lessons didn't really appeal to me. I learned at my own pace. And my mom, I guess I was in 11th grade, she realized that this was not a passing fad, and she leaned into it and got me a Beatles book that had the complete scores of every Beatles song. And so I fell in love and went down that rabbit hole with the Beatles, and that really shaped how I wrote chords and wrote guitar pieces and how I shaped songs moving forward. And then I was growing up in Ocean City, man. I expanded my chops playing with Zion Reggae and a bunch of local cover bands, and learning how to be a lead guitar player, learning how to be a rhythm guitar player, learning how to do whatever I needed to do to serve the band in which I was playing at the moment, all the while having my own band with my own music. But being in the cover scene really gets your chops up and really expands your vocabulary, so when you're ready to launch your own stuff, you have a lot of arrows in your quiver to be interesting. And that, to me, is what my music has always been about, is trying to translate the things that I find interesting and cool and putting my little touch on them, and then beaming them out to you and whomever is interested. And quite frankly, sometimes I feel like nobody's interested, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's compulsive at this point. I have to do it.
You are compelled. You are compelled. What was your first guitar?
My first guitar was a Squier Stratocaster. It was 1995. Something that I picked up from Thompson's Music on my $4.15 an hour salary at Baja Amusements, where I worked at the go-kart track there. I chugged along through that, and then a couple years later, I think I saved up every penny that I had to buy an American Stratocaster that I still have hanging on the wall over there. It's been refretted a couple times. I have beat the thing to all tarnation, but those are my workhorses, those Strats, and I've expanded over the years. I've never been a really expensive guitar type of guy. I've always been a pawn shop kind of guy, but a couple years ago, I actually did drop a pretty penny on a Gretsch Country Gentleman. Again, the Beatles were such a huge influence on me, and those iconic images of George Harrison playing the Gretsch Country Gentleman all over the 1964 British Invasion tour. It's iconic to me. So the Country Gentleman through a Fender Twin reverb, killer. But yeah, my first guitars were Stratocasters. Anything I could get at a pawn shop or Thompson's Music for that, they were nice enough to let a guy making $4.35 an hour do a layaway plan. Like, I'll pay this off in 15 years. I promise you.
I promise. Let's do this. Let's cue up your first two songs, and then on the backside, let's talk a little bit about your process in writing, how you go about recording, and what you think about when you're putting music to lyrics or vice versa.
Sure.
Here we go.
Broken, isn't it? Don't take a break, just make some more time for me and you. Throw a fit, throw it in a pit, filled with spikes and needles, just like in a Looney Tunes cartoon. Don't forget, you gotta learn from it.
Okay, we are back with Ryan Abbott. He is a local singer, songwriter, musician, probably producer, probably all sorts of things. But he is one of those people that, as a guitar player, when you hear him play, what I hear is phrasing. What I hear is an approach to a song that helps the song and is not about an exercise in speed or an exercise in dexterity. It's all about the song and the music. When you wrote this first song, Quick Hide the Weed, tell me what you were thinking.
Well, it's funny because that song I wrote in my mom's garage a couple of years ago when she was downstairs dying of cancer. Oh. And the song is about another low point in my life. What's funny about that is it's kind of, on its surface at least, a happy song. It's an up-tempo number with nostalgic images of first loves, and so the dichotomy there of this package being somewhat bright or optimistic while all of this terrible stuff is happening in the current backdrop, and it's about kind of a sad point in my life. I find that to be very interesting and also indicative of how life is. Life is not always either the needle pushing to happy or pushing to sad. It's often wavering in between. And that's where I find this song to be. But, it's about this time in my life in the late 90s. I was infatuated with this girl I was playing music with at the time. We were kind of a duo. Traveling around, and not romantically, but friendship wise. I mean, I was fascinated by it. She was a couple years older than me and very seasoned and a brilliant musician and a brilliant songwriter. And then it came time for her to go to art school on the other side of the country. And this is before cell phones. This is before we had the internet in our pocket. This is before Facebook, before MySpace, before any of that stuff. This was back when, in order to stay in touch with somebody, you had to write your landline number down on a piece of loose leaf paper and hand it to somebody for them to hopefully keep in a place prominent enough that they can remember you. And I remember driving her to the airport that morning, and we took a detour. Before we left, we went to Assateague to enjoy some illicit substances that I now have been awarded a card by the state of Maryland to use legally. But at the time it was not, and we were pulled over by park police. And so one of the last tokens of that summer of her and I traveling around playing music was her turning to me and saying, "Quick, hide the weed," when we got pulled over. But that was the day, I took her to the airport. I put her on an airplane, and I haven't seen her since. We have since reconnected on social media. But, you don't get that time back. You don't get that tightness, that closeness with somebody. You don't get your youth back. Nope. So that song is kind of about a chapter turning part of my life that makes me really sad. And I think that I wrote it at a time that I was really sad because I was losing my mom and going through this other chapter turning thing. And I think, quantum entanglement, man, my 2 points of sadness interacted with each other, and I came up with that song.
Quantum entanglement is really not a phrase that I get very often in these interviews. Thank you. I appreciate it. Welcome. I actually have a song by that title.
Oh, there you go.
Tell me who played on your on this song.
Yeah, sure. Adam Belenke, great local drummer, is playing drums. Casey Briggs, my bass player in the Phantom Limbs, is playing. I'm sorry, Casey's not playing bass on that. He plays bass on most of the record, but not that one. Casey's friend, Chris Chaney, otherwise known as the Bone Man, is playing bass. He plays in a great Pittsburgh area band called the Derek Woods Band. And then me on guitar. and vocals. And then my very good friend and cello player, Sally McGee, is playing cello and doing backup vocals on that tune.
Excellent. Yeah, I love cello on, especially on Americana style music. Chad Parker is a guy I go to UUFS fellowship with, and great player.
Oh, really?
Okay, now this one I really appreciate because, like many people my age, when I saw Elvis Presley the first time on Ed Sullivan, it changed my life.
Sure.
I couldn't believe what he was doing. Now, of course, I was sitting in a room full of older folks who claimed that this was not music. This wasn't going anywhere. This was a flash in the pan. And there were, overtones of all sorts of other nefarious ideas. But tell me about Evil Elvis.
Yeah. Evil Elvis is, I'm a big nut for pop culture and the darker side of pop culture. And I feel like since Elvis's death, I believe he was 42, since he passed away, there's so much mythology, so much intrigue around his death, more so than his work product of his life. And he was a tremendous, he had a tremendous work ethic. I wouldn't call him the most creative person from his generation, but he was certainly one of the more vibrant performers. I can't think of anyone else, to be honest. But all of the intrigue around his death has always sort of piqued my interest. Elvis is still alive. I think it's a Mojo Nixon thing. And, I'm also really into, or at least I was really into zombie mythos and comic books and movies before it became on the, on everybody's TV with The Walking Dead. Before all that, I was just super huge into George Romero and other zombie pieces of art. And I don't know. I don't know what fever dream I had that one day, but I just started thinking about, you know what it was? I think I was reading about how Elvis's colon weighed 40 pounds when he died or something like that. Or like during his autopsy, they were removing his colon and it sounded like a bag of gravel because there were so many pills in there. And I just, stuff like that just turns me down a different path than me thinking about my coffee order at Starbucks. And
indeed.
And so I wrote that too. Yeah.
The tale of Elvis's colon. That's fascinating. Now you're a journalist also, aren't you?
I am. Yes.
Who do you write for?
I write for a company called Courthouse News Service. We're a legal news service out of Pasadena, California. Technically, I'm their East Coast bureau chief, so I manage a bunch of writers, which is not my favorite thing. I don't like really relying on other people to do work, but I write for them regularly as well. I mentor young writers. It's cool. It keeps me plugged into the modern condition, which if it were just me alone in my studio here, I would effectively Ted Kaczynski out probably. So it keeps me plugged in and keeps me somewhat civilized.
Okay, let's do this. Let's cue up Night Terrors and Right the Wrongs, and let's discuss those a little bit on the backside. Here we go.
I wanna know about your night terrors when you're alone, ill prepared. Does your mind race, your body freeze? Is there something in the shadows that you see? Cause every
This has been Delmarvalous Americana here on YouTube, on Pack 14 in Salisbury, and on NPR on WSDL 90.7. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure and go to Delmarvalous Americana House Concerts on Facebook for a schedule of those live music shows here in Salisbury, Maryland. Enjoy, adios, and namaste.